Hi, it's Mark. One of the biggest fears that new investors have is the fear of what if I get a bad tenant? We've all heard the nightmare scenarios. And honestly, this is a legit fear because bad tenants can do real damage. They can stop paying rent. They can tear up a property. They can create stress, legal problems, neighbor problems, repairs, and a whole lot of sleepless nights. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that tenant risk is imaginary. It's not. But I will tell you this. Most tenant disasters are not random. A lot of them start before the tenant ever moves in. They start with poor screening. They start with weak standards. And they can start out of desperation. It starts when the owner is so eager to fill a vacancy that they ignore the signs that are right in front of them. I've seen this many, many times. A new landlord has a property sitting empty. The mortgage is due, utilities are on, the grass needs cutting, and the bills keep coming. The pressure starts building. Then somebody shows up with a smile and a nice story, and they look not enough money to get in the door. And the landlord thinks, well, they seem nice. That's not a tenant screening system. That's hope. And hope is not a management system. Now, I'm not saying you should be cold. I'm not saying you should be unfair. You should treat all people with respect. You must follow the law and use the written standards, the same written standards for every applicant. And you should never make emotional, inconsistent decisions. You do need to remember something critically important. This is not just a person renting your home. This is someone taking control of an expensive asset that you are responsible for. So you need a real process. You need a written application. You need income verification. You must verify employment where it's appropriate. And you must check landlord references when they're available. You need to review the credit history and have background checks if that's legally allowed where you are. You must learn your local landlord-tenant rules and regulations. It varies by state, so check in with your own particular state. You must have clear written standards, not standards you make up as you go along. Written standards applied consistently. That part matters because fair housing laws are not suggestions. And even beyond the law, consistency protects you. It protects the applicant. It protects the property. It protects your decision-making. A lot of new landlords get themselves in trouble because they do not want to seem difficult. They don't want to ask too many questions. They don't want to say no, or they don't want to leave the property vacant either. I understand that. But vacancy feels expensive. I know. I'll tell you what I've told 100 clients. The only thing worse than a vacant unit is a unit with a bad tenant in it. Because a bad tenancy can be far more expensive than a vacant unit. One bad tenant can cost you months of rent. It can cost you legal fees, repairs, stress, lost time, and sometimes real damage to the property. So the question is not, how fast can I fill it? The better question is, am I putting the right person into the property under the right terms? That's a much better question. And good tenants usually don't mind a professional process for the registration and the application. In fact, many good tenants appreciate it. It tells them the property is being run seriously. The problems usually start when the owner gets loose, or when there's no clear standards and no documentation, no written lease terms or move-in report, no photos, no rent collection system, or a plan for late payments, no plan for maintenance requests or for inspections. That's when things drift. And when things drift, problems grow. A late payment becomes a pattern. And a maintenance minor issue can become property damage. A small misunderstanding can become a dispute. We've all seen that. A weak lease becomes a fight over who said what and who agreed to what terms. So if you're afraid of bad tenants, the answer is not to avoid being a landlord. The answer is to never wing it. Build a process. Use written standards. Screen carefully and document everything. Follow the law And do not let vacancy pressure talk you into a bad decision, because the tenant you accept is one of the most important investment decisions you're ever going to make. Get this fixed in your mind before, not after you own the property. Not after you fix it so nicely for the tenant coming in. Before they're even approved and move in, that's where a lot of landlords' problems actually begin. They're either prevented or invited. And this is one reason inside the 21-Day Investor, we talk about ownership, not just buying. Because buying the property is only the beginning. The real work begins when you own it. And if you learn to think like an owner before you become one, you give yourself a much better chance. In the next part, in part 2, we talk about what happens after the tenant moves in. Because even with good screening, you still need good management. And if the screening feels a little intimidating to you, I put together a simple, free tenant approval criteria checklist, and you can download it below. It gives you a clean starting point on what to ask for, what to verify, and how to best keep the process consistent. As always, thanks very much for spending a few minutes with me. I appreciate you. I'll see you in the next video.